The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. Welcome in to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stupric.
And I'm Ryan Risky.
And yes, today we have a big show talking about, we're going to start off talking about Thursday Night Football. We'll also talk about the Cubs. Their magic number is now 9 after taking 3 of 4 in Pittsburgh. And we'll also get to the Patrick Kane, very strange news conference that took place today.
What did we learn from that press conference?
Absolutely nothing.
Other than absolutely nothing.
And we'll also give our predictions for NFL Week 2. We'll give you who we think is going to win. So before we get into that, you can follow us on Twitter at Ryan Stupric.
At @dark_risky.
Okay, let's get into the matchup that'll be starting in just about 25 minutes or so, and that'll be the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a big AFC West matchup. Kansas City played really well in Week 1. I know they let Texas get back into it, but or the Houston Texans, that is. But Travis Kelce was really good his first game.
This is probably going to be his breakout season. I believe this is his third season. It's his second or third. I know he was splitting time with Anthony Fasano last year. Now that Fasano's gone, he's the main guy, and he showed him and Tyler Eifert will probably be the two breakout tight ends this year. Not that they didn't break out in Week 1, just kind of like the two tight ends that will be household names by the end of the season. I think Denver is going to win this game. I think Peyton Manning's going to finally get it together. Him and Demaryius Thomas will hook up for at least one touchdown tonight, maybe two. It'll be a big game. Because Manning really hasn't thrown many touchdown passes recently since the end of last season. It was a lot of rushing touchdowns for that team. Manning wasn't throwing too many. Obviously, he was dealing with a torn quad, and Demaryius Thomas was dealing with a hand injury at those times. I think now the Denver offense gets going this week, and I'm going to say Denver wins this game over the Chiefs.
I disagree with you. Dun, dun, dun. I think Kansas City is going to win. I think they're going to improve to 2-0. And Peyton Manning did not look good in that first game.
No, he looked terrible. Granted, what made that even more, what actually made that game fun to watch was how bad Mark Trestman's new offense looked.
That was the funniest thing about it.
That was hilarious. I was just like, yep, this is why the Ravens shouldn't have hired this moron.
And, I really think Kansas City's going to be at home, and they always have a great home crowd, and they always play well at home. I just think they're going to win, and they did have a very good
loud stadium,
right? And they did have very good defense against Houston, which is a good defensive team in itself. But they played very well defensively early on in that game. They had an interception return for a touchdown, I believe, in that game. They were up, 27-0 before you knew it, and a lot of that had to do with Travis Kelce, but. Most of that.
Now, that also does mean that their wide receiver did not catch a touchdown pass for Kansas City.
Right. I don't know when that'll ever happen.
Yeah, really. That might not be until Alex Smith is gone or until they get some big name wide receiver. Yeah, that's just kind of like the John Lester pickoff attempt. like how he went 60 plus starts without attempting a pickoff throw, and then who knows. I forgot how many starts it was since his last pickoff attempt, which he had one on Tuesday night, which was very fun to see. It's just kind of like John Lester and pickoffs, which is the Chiefs' wide receivers catching touchdown passes. Although it was kind of funny last year when Dwayne Bowe thought he had scored, and then it got called back on review because he fumbled on the one.
Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, I really think Kansas City will win this game. I think Alex Smith will be able to manage the game better than Peyton Manning. Now, Peyton Manning's a better quarterback overall.
Yeah, I don't think Gary Kubiak's going to let what happened last week happen again to his offense.
Yeah, I just don't have a good feeling about the Broncos as a whole this season. I don't have a good feeling about them. But
yeah, it's really this season is mostly if Peyton Manning shows his age, they're not going to be very good. And obviously, it depends on the run game. C.J. Anderson was terrible in Week 1, and he's starting tonight, except he'll be playing injured, so it'll be interesting to see how many carries Ronnie Hillman gets.
The last 3 matchups, the Broncos have won all 3 of them. The last 3 matchups,
I'm pretty sure they've won every single matchup that Peyton Manning has played the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think they have won all the matches between Manning and the Chiefs.
December 1st, 2013, I remember watching that game. That was the day that the Bears lost to Minnesota in that horrible game that I was at in Minnesota. And I was watching this game at a Buffalo Wild Wings with Mark. The Broncos held on 35-28. That was a very exciting game.
Was that at the very end of the season?
Yeah, it was December
17?
1st. December 1st.
December 1st. I remember there was one game Manning had against one team. It was the year of his amazing season when he had like the 55 touchdowns.
Yeah, that was the season.
Passes. Yeah, I remember. I forgot who they played in the last week of the season. I just remember he threw for like 290 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half, and then he didn't play the second half. I was thinking that those are entire game numbers for most quarterbacks, where he can do that in a half.
And the last 2 games in 2014, they won 24-17 and 29-16. So not necessarily blowout games. That last game kind of got away from Kansas City, but I have a good feeling about Kansas City now. I do like the Chiefs. I'm not necessarily a big fan, but I do like them.
Was it the Chiefs that the Broncos were playing when Decker had that 4 touchdown game?
Possibly. I think you might be right about that. Yeah.
Because I remember the week before that he had like 2 catches for 11 yards, and then he had a 4 touchdown game.
I know that game, the December 1st, 2013 game, was in Kansas City. I know that. And the Broncos won 35-28. So now, I think
sounds like that game.
I think the Chiefs will win. Did you give a score prediction for the game?
I don't have one other than Denver is going to win.
I think the Chiefs will win by, I'll say, a touchdown.
I mean, it'll probably be a close game decided by probably no more than 10 points, unless Peyton Manning just goes off and has like one of those 5 or 6 touchdown games, which is unlikely against this defense in a tough night crowd at KC.
Yeah, and you can also tell us who you think's going to win. You can tweet at us during the game, because this podcast will be up, during the game at some point. So you can tweet us who you think's going to win at Ryan Stupric and at dark_risky. Let us know how stupid that either me or Ryan will end up being by the end of this game. We're going to move on to talking about Cubs now. Don't forget, later on in the show, we will be talking about the rest of the Week 2 matchups, including the Cardinals at the Bears. All right, so let's move on to the Cubs as they won a very exciting game. The offense finally broke through, which was great to see. They had that great fifth, I think it was the 5th or 6th inning where they broke out, including that Anthony Rizzo 2-run homer, which was also very good to see because he was in a slump. He was something like 5 for his last 29.
Don't forget the
even
Clayton
worse than that.
Richard 2-run double.
That was crazy. I loved that, especially because Joe Mannion was talking to Clayton Richard on what he was going to do, bunt or do whatever. Clayton Richard just goes up there, hacks, and then hits a nice a double that I think it went all the way to the wall.
Yeah, it was a very nice hit. The offense, of course, broke out, and I believe that Rizzo home run was the first Cub home run of the series.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It definitely was the first Cub home run and the only home run of the series by the Cubs. It was very exciting, and although Kyle Hendricks, he was the starter today, right? Yeah.
Which, as I said, I'm not shocked by the way Hendricks is pitching now. I just think he's fatigued.
I agree with you, and I loved your idea of having Trevor Cahill have a spot start somewhere in there. He's been lights out.
Yeah, him or Wood or Clayton Richard, like someone that's not Dan Herron. Like Herron's pitching tomorrow.
Hey, I think Herron's better than Hendricks, though, especially when you're down, down the stretcher. He's a veteran force. He pitched well against St. Louis, which I don't think anyone would have suspected. Yeah, I think I'd still rather have him than Hendricks, though. I feel like Hendricks would get rocked in the playoffs.
Probably. I mean, you really don't know. I mean, obviously that back end of the rotation is a question mark just because of the way Hendricks is pitching, just probably from fatigue. He's never pitched this many innings before, and he's probably just tired. And Cahill's been very good. I hope they look to re-sign him in the offseason. Clayton Richard, I wouldn't mind re-signing him.
Oh, I'd love it.
Him just have him try to be a lefty out of the bullpen.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got a lot of potential, too.
Wood did very good today, 2 perfect innings with 5 strikeouts.
That was nice to see him strike out the side the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
that was good.
Richard has been, I think it was the 4 innings against Philly. He just gave up the 1 run just because of a wild pitch that on a ball Montero probably could have blocked. However, he didn't. And obviously, yeah, Cahill's been very good. It seems like any pitcher who's been pitching very bad and gets thrown away by their old team, the Cubs pick him up, and then Chris Bosio always fixes something.
Right. Although here's the thing, as soon as all these bullpen pitchers start to do good, then someone else does good, and they start to tail off. Like, how Strop was good at some points. Now he's not very.
It seems like whenever
now he's getting back to it, but he wasn't very good.
Strop only pitches bad against the Cardinals.
Yeah, and he pitches bad when the Cubs have a big lead. Like that game I was at in Arizona, he gave up that. He gave up the 2-run homer to Nick Ahmed, which made it a 6-4 ball game. That was a little scary to see him do that. He walked the first batter. I hate when he walks the first batter because it starts you off in a horrible position.
I hate when Cubs pitchers walk batters because I swear every time they walk a batter, he scores.
Right.
Unless Arrieta's pitching.
Yeah, unless Arrieta's pitching. Even Lester, he usually doesn't let those walks get by him, and I'm glad Lester pitched really good. It'll finally shut up all the Lester haters because, he's been very good. He had the one bad, I think I tweeted this out a couple days ago, since that rough patch in, I think it was June, where he pitched bad in Miami and he pitched bad somewhere else. He's
only had one bad
start, and that was against Detroit.
And
yeah,
he just in his career he always pitches bad against them.
Right, and so you sort of have to look at the stats, and it was just one game.
The 10 starts before that Detroit game were very good, and every start since that Detroit game has been very good.
This guy pitched a complete game shutout after you lost pretty bad in that.
It was just a complete game. It was like the final score was.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't a shutout. But he pitched the complete game, first of the season for him, and it was the nightcap of a doubleheader, and you lost that first game in kind of bad fashion in the 8th inning. And you go ahead and you win 2-1, and you beat J.A. Happ, who's been really good this year. It was great to see, and then, of course. Then you win last night in 12 innings, 3-2. Whew, the bullpen pitched very well in that game.
I'm starting to get sick of Joe's management with his pitching. Like Arrieta should not have even started that 8th inning. He had already thrown so many pitches. It's time to let your bullpen finish it off. And he was already at 120 pitches at the end of the 8th inning. Like that's just too many at this point of the season. You need those pitches back at, when the playoffs start. You want him, you don't want him to throwing that many pitches at the end of the season. Yes, I know it was a close game against the Pirates, except you want those pitches in those innings again in the playoffs instead of having blow-up innings in the playoffs because he was too tired from throwing so many pitches in starts that he didn't need to.
Right, and this was also an important series when to take 3 out of 4 on the road at Pittsburgh because you split with Philadelphia, which you really should have either 4-game swept or taken 3 of 4 of them. But you ended up sweeping, but you really got back on track here against the Pirates, and now you're going to be home. Last home game of the season, the last homestand of the season, I should say. St. Louis, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh. Doesn't get more exciting than that.
Right, and then throw in the fact that they got that makeup game against the Royals right after the Pirates series.
They do. They have the makeup game against the Royals, and then they play, I think, at Cincinnati, and then finish the season at Milwaukee. So it'll be very exciting. Tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be Lance Lynn against Dan Herron. Lance Lynn has been pretty good this year.
I think Lynn was the one that pitched when Herron beat the Cardinals. I think Lynn pitched very bad.
Yeah, and I think he pitched another time against the Cubs and didn't do too well either. I think this will be his 3rd start against them. But yeah, of course, Herron pitched really good. So that would tell you that the Cubs would win the game, but we don't really know what to expect from Herron. His ERA is 5.31 this year, which is not very good.
No, that's just with the Cubs.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
With the Marlins.
It was much better with Miami, which is a little strange, but he has a 5.31. He's 2-2. He's had the decisions.
He has not been good though, other than that Cardinal game, and they need him to be better again. Because honestly, if he pitches bad again, I'd say he's just done. It's time to have Clayton Richard or Trevor Cahill or Travis Wood start that game, or just have whoever starts it. They only have to pitch 3 or 4 innings and just have the other 2 guys try to finish it off, because I don't see how Dan Herron's going to be on the postseason roster because he starts these bad, and I don't know if I'd feel comfortable having a right-handed pitcher that throws 88 coming out of the bullpen who gives up a tremendous amount of home runs.
That's a good point. That'll also be interesting to see who gets left off the playoff roster because the bullpen is too big, obviously.
Because obviously you only really need 4 starters in the playoffs.
Right.
And obviously, you want to. Well, Cahill's not eligible for the postseason roster, unfortunately. Except you might have.